Hi friends, this is Prem. Today we are going to discuss about the very important video, very expensive video also, because we are going to discuss about the H1B 100k fee. The ball is in all the court. The verdict comes from the district court. Now it's moved to the court of appeal. So what happens next? What the court of appeal will decide? Whether the government will go to the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court will say. So we have a lot of questions. We are going to ask all the questions to our attorney, Henry, and he is from Manifest Law Firm, and Manifest Law Firm is giving a free consulting. If you have any question regarding your visa or green card or any immigration related question, you can ask them. It's completely free. You have QR code on your screen. Just scan it and schedule your appointment. Hi Henry, welcome to the show and thanks for your time. Today we are going to discuss about the very important news regarding the 100k fee. Before going to the video, வணக்கம், எப்படி இருக்கீங்க?
வணக்கம், நல்லா இருக்கேன். நீங்க?
Yeah, I'm good, Henry. Before I ask the question, can you please explain about what is the status of the 100k fee now?
The good news is that the lower court has said that the 100k fee is illegal and that this shouldn't be applied. The bad news is that if you currently have a pending case and you leave the United States, the government would still ask for the 100k fee before you are allowed back in. To explain a little bit better, what happened is the district court judge said that the 100k fee is unlawful and that it should not be applied. It issued another order saying that it is pausing the previous order pending the appeal. What that means is the lower court judge basically said, okay, uscis is appealing the decision to the Court of Appeals anyway, so I'm going to stop my new rule from going into effect before the appeal gets moving, because they don't want there to be changes in the rules back and forth, right? So they prefer to keep things stable while the final decision is made on what is actually happening. So they don't want to say one court says don't charge the fee, then some people apply without the fee, then the Court of Appeals again says no, just kidding, there is a fee, right? So there would be too much like ping pong, and they don't want that. They want to keep it stable until they decide on what is the final law going to be. So right now, the case is going to a Court of Appeals, and right now the 100k fee still applies, basically. We hope that the Court of Appeals will agree to the lower court judge and also say that this is illegal, and then hopefully we'll see the 100k fee finally be cancelled. But for now, it still applies.
Okay, it still applies. So if anyone trying to process outside the USA, they have to pay the 100k fee, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you mentioned the district court. That's where it starts. They are given the verdict. Now the Court of Appeal, we don't know what they are going to say. Say example, if they favor the government, then everything will stay as it is. Suppose if they favors the lower court, that is a district court, and if they say this won't apply, whether the government will move to the Supreme Court or what will happen after that?
This is kind of complicated on how the US legal system works, because there's more than one Court of Appeals, right? There are districts in the country. Each area basically has their own Court of Appeals. It's called a circuit. So, for example, there's a different circuit Court of Appeals for the New York area, and then a different one for the West Coast with California and Arizona included in there, and so on. Every case, if they want to, are guaranteed an appeal opportunity with the Court of Appeals. If an East Coast court basically decision is appealed to the Court of Appeals, they might make one decision. If a West Coast decision is appealed to the Court of Appeals there, that Court of Appeals might reach a different decision. So that is usually where the Supreme Court gets involved, because the Supreme Court, which is at the very top, is not obligated to take a case. They can choose if they want to accept the case or not. So even if the Court of Appeals for this 100k fee case says we agree with the lower court that the 100k fee is illegal, then the government, the USCIS or DHS, can submit request to the US Supreme Court saying, can you please take this case and make a decision on it? but the Supreme Court is not obligated to take it. Basically, the nine justices of the Supreme Court would look at this request and they would take a vote. If there's at least four, I believe, that says, yes, we should take this, then they will take the case and it will go to the Supreme Court. The justices say they don't have enough votes to take the case, then whatever the Court of Appeals said last is going to be the final decision on the case. So, because there's so many cases in the U.S. decided every day, and the Supreme Court has only time for about maybe less than 100 cases per year, so they don't take everything that is asked of them. But most of the time, they take the kinds of cases where there is multiple decisions in different circuits of Court of Appeals because they don't want there to be different law applying in different states, right? So imagine this, that if the Second Circuit on the East Coast says the 100K fee does apply, but then the Court of Appeals for California in the Ninth Circuit says, no, the 100K fee doesn't apply because it's illegal, then you would have a different rule based on where the company is located, right? One company could get an H1B from abroad. Another company could not hire an H1B worker from abroad because one would have the 100K fee and the other would not. So in those kinds of cases where there is a conflict, that is the one where the US Supreme Court usually steps in and says, we have to fix this because it's not reasonable to have a system like this. But if there's just one Court of Appeals decision that says 100K fee applies, for example, and there's no conflict, I don't think the Supreme Court would take it up because they have very limited time, so they don't want to take a case unless it has some really, really high importance for the country.
Okay, yeah, you clearly explained. Yeah, thank you so much, Henry. Yeah, I got some idea about that. If the Court of Appeals goes in favor of the government now, whether the attorney group can go to some other courts, example, the District Court of California, and they can get the stay from there?
Basically, yes, it would be possible if the same parties or different parties have a similar lawsuit about the 100K fee in California or in Texas or Minnesota or somewhere else, then the district court in those locations could make a different decision, and it could then go to a different court of appeals and even reach a different decision there. So that's why the U.S. legal landscape is always changing, because there's so many courts. It's such a big country. I mean, not as big as India, but close.
It's bigger than India, but might be the population-wise India is bigger, but not the land-wise. Yeah. So all because it is coming as a proclamation order, right? If it is coming as a law, there is no question about challenging the law. So this creates a lot of challenges and a lot of confusion, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, because there's different branches of the government. There's the court system, the judiciary. There is the Congress, which is the legislature that creates the laws, and then there's the executive branch, which is the DHS and the president at the top, all of the different executive agencies. And over time, Congress has given a lot of the power to the executive branch to basically come up with regulations and make a lot of decisions, because Congress doesn't have time to decide on every tiny detail. But by doing that, it also creates a conflict, because, of course, the executive would love to decide everything all the time without having to wait for Congress to do something. And that's where this game is played out every year, that we have to fight about, is this decision, is this proclamation, is this executive order within the president's authority, or is it something over or across or beyond the authority? Did they go too far? Are they doing something that they're not supposed to be doing? And that's how these different branches are keeping each other in check, to make sure that any one branch wouldn't become too powerful.
Okay. So what are the possibilities if the government wants to make it as a law?
The strongest one would be, like you said, if it was an act of Congress. So if Congress passed the bill saying that 100K fee applies to H1B visas, and then the president signs that, it becomes a law all over the United States, and it would be a lot more difficult then to get rid of it, because one of the reasons the proclamation was deemed illegal is because the judge said this is like a tax. and the taxing authority, according to our US Constitution, is in Congress. Congress is supposed to be the one that sets the tax rates, not the president, right? So the president said, no, this is not a tax, this is a limit on entry, right? We're just banning some people from coming in, but the judge said, no, effectively, this is what is a tax, and the president doesn't have an authority to just on their own decide a tax. The second thing the government could try to do is pass a regulation, just like DHS does for the OPT and the F1 duration of status and different aspects of the, like regulations for immigration applications. The problem is that even if they pass the regulation, the same arguments would apply that that DHS cannot just unilaterally create a new tax. There is a law that says DHS can create regulations to set the filing fees, but the law also says that the filing fees has to be based on what is the actual cost of processing the case. So, USCIS can say that the premium processing fee is $2,965 because it takes a lot of time for the officers to, process a I-140 or an H1B or something like that. But they cannot just say 100,000, please, because it's not what it costs them to process a case. So I don't think that the regulation would help either. I think the only way they could really make it strong would be if Congress comes in and does it, but I don't think Congress is going to do it. I don't think they have the votes.
Oh yeah, so it has the filibuster rule and 60 votes, right? So they need Democrat support. So it should be the bipartisan bill, isn't it?
Right. So neither party has more than 60% of the votes in their control. So that means they would have to do a bipartisan agreement, and there's no way that both parties are going to agree on that. I mean, we see in the news all the time somebody proposes a new immigration bill to change something, and usually those don't go anywhere because they don't have agreement. The Democrats want to make things a lot easier for everybody, including the undocumented and DACA and employment-based and all of it, whereas Republicans, a lot of them want to make it more difficult and also give more money to ICE to make it easier to do deportations and whatever. So there's a lot of conflict in what are the priorities.
So do we have the date?
If I remember correctly, the lower district court judge has said that they have paused the order until the 18th. And 18th is the deadline that USCIS must submit some filing to the Court of Appeals. So now USCIS in the next few days has to file that motion. We'll probably hear about it end of the week or maybe next week.
The order become effective until the court decision, right? Say example, if they moved before 18th and if it is pending on the Court of Appeal, so till then the 100K fee become effective, right?
Right. So right now the 100K fee still applies, and as long as USCIS does file their motion by the 18th, then it continues to apply until the Court of Appeals makes a decision otherwise. So if the Court of Appeals just says, no, this should not apply, then the 100K fee will be dropped. But for now, it still applies. And as long as USCIS submits their appeal by the 18th, then it will continue to apply.
Got it. So the ball is in Court of Appeal court. Let's see what happened. And it's going to be an interesting week. And let's see what Court of Appeal is saying. And thank you so much, Henry, because you not only explained this case, and you explained all over the, means like how the judiciary is working and how the things become law, and lot of things you have explained with that. And thank you so much. I gained more knowledge from you, and thanks for everything, Henry.
No, it's a pleasure to be here.
Henry.
Nandri.